Welcome back to Richmond, Virginia. This is Charlie Inch, the trauma philosopher. We're at the Holistic Life Studio space, which is where my law office, Inch Law, is. I'm here with brother Curtis, who you're going to meet in a second. He's been doing amazing things with fatherhood and parenthood. So we're trying to talk about things that we're not talking about. So the podcasts that the trauma philosopher is doing is What Are We Not Talking About? We're also doing In Recovery of Villainy. Men are villains right now, and it's part of our own making. And we're not doing anything to fucking do anything about it sometimes. And in fact, sometimes we're accepting and knowing that it's not acceptable and we're not doing anything meaningfully to know how to move past that and actually do better. I've been desperate to start having conversations with men, start having conversations with fathers. And so what are we not talking about? In Recovery of Villainy, and then also Stories of Resilience and Healing. Okay? So without further ado, I will say that I met this gentleman Friday of last week, Virginia Commonwealth University, which is a big university here in downtown Richmond, made famous in 2010, I believe, with the VCU Rams when they went to the Final Four, right? Crashed the servers of VCU. And so, VCU is down the center of downtown Richmond. It's the capital of the Confederacy. There's some weird things about, like, time bends here. People are still stuck in the Confederacy. People are still, stuck during those thought processes. This is an Alpha Phi Alpha brother.
Yes, 06.
Yeah, excellent. I'm a Phi Delta brother, Phi Delta Theta.
Okay, awesome.
So, Curtis, it's been so cool to meet you even just less than a week ago. Right?
Likewise, brother Charlie.
And I love your energy, and I love what you and your wife are doing.
Thank you.
So without further ado, could you tell some people about yourself and how you ended up on your journey to where you are as a father, trying to help other fathers?
So, yes, thank you for having me, brother Charlie and crew. I'm Curtis Hall, Richmond, Philadelphia.
Last name?
Curtis Hall.
Hall?
Yeah, Curtis
H-A-L-L?
Yep, Hall right. Second. So my wife and I, beautiful Yolanda, a.k.a. Love, been married for 18 years, together for 19. We have two beautiful daughters, 15 and 14. So I'm going to go ahead and give a broad overarching, and then we can fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So, P.S., I got my first mentor when I was about 14 playing football. I went to high school outside of the city of Philadelphia, where I'm from, because my mother was by herself because my grandmother had passed. So she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to get this young man in an environment where he can thrive. And North Philadelphia is not it.
You're a pretty big dude. Were you a pretty big dude back then?
Ironically not. Up until like 8th grade, I was skinny with a big head.
Okay. You grew into your head.
Yeah, I grew into my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Exponentially, yeah. So I bulked up like mid 8th grade, and a buddy of mine named Chris Jones at the time said, Kurt, you should play some ball. He said, I know you're smart, but let's get active. And that was like my first interaction with men, growing up with all women. So P.S., I actually am pretty good at it.
You said growing up with women, not with men. Where was your father?
So my father was in the city, but he was doing his own thing. So my mother and grandmother raised me. So
when you say in the city doing his own thing, could you be a little bit more specific?
Oh, yes. So he had several mistresses. Sometimes
was he married to your mom?
Yeah, he was married to my mom, but he was doing his own thing. And we had a strange relationship. And I was jealous. I felt rejection a lot of the times because I would see him spending time with these women's children and not with me. So I took that as, fuck you, Curtis. And
you're not good enough.
Yeah. And so that laid some things I didn't even imagine how they would affect me later. But I felt the hurt of it initially right there as a young man, 13, 14, coming.
Did you recognize it then? When did you recognize it?
I would say I recognized it when I saw how he continuously shitted on my mom and not showing up.
When in your life? When in your life did you recognize that?
So I say between 8 and 10 years old, going away 3 weeks at a time and making promises. And
promises to who? To you or your mom?
Both of us, and empty-handed. And then now I'm forced to do things as a young man that I'm not really sure, but it's just me and my mom in the house.
Do you mind if I ask some examples?
So I'll tell you one. This is one summer. This is after I started playing football. Like I'm getting bigger, 9th grade, because I got moved to varsity. So that's how good I was,
right,
as a freshman. But we're doing summer cleaning. And so we're putting stuff out, and we're putting it out so I can take it to the dump with my friends later. And the gentleman, surprisingly, a Muslim, there's no shade to my Muslim brothers and sisters, but he made some lewd comments to my mother. And she was a very curvy woman, and I felt that was disrespectful. I said, you need to apologize to my mother. And he was like, I ain't apologizing to that bitch. So, that don't take much to get you off the handle.
Right.
So I'm like, yes, the fuck you are. So then next thing you know, I'm dragging him down the street. And we in this tussle. Now I'm guessing maybe he's 29, 30, not real old, but definitely older than me.
You're in ninth grade.
Yeah, I'm in ninth grade fighting an adult. You know, so he threatens me. He said, I'm coming back and we're gonna see you. So I'm like, I don't know much about the Muslim faith, but I know they run deep. But I will tell you that even in the midst of North Philly, a dysfunctional neighborhood there was a sense of community.
Yeah.
Because even then growing up in the 80s and 90s, and you may attest to some of this, Brother Charlie, like, even though it was a modicum of respect, they would still help elderly people across the street, not do certain things in front of people. There was some type of decency, even though there was a lot of crime. That makes sense.
Yep.
So what there's
still a street code.
Yeah, street code, which
there always is. The question is, what level of the street code is there? You know?
Yeah. And I tell anybody, you ever see that movie Boys in the Hood?
Yeah.
So granted, I'm bigger, but I'm Trey. So I had earned a healthy respect because in the midst of all that, I was comfortable who I was.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't a street guy, and I had nothing against street guys, but I had the fiber one because I wasn't gonna let nobody push me around. So P.S. when he come back,
well, you had no one to protect you.
Yeah. And so when he come back, I got all the killers around me though. They sitting on the step with me, saying, "Okay, if he come back, he gonna see all of us." So that was the first message to me how community could really coalesce together.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I didn't have this language to articulate it, but that stuck with me. And it made me feel good because it's the first time I seen other men. Now I was like, here go my father, not here, but yet these other men can come to my rescue. So that sent the message. So that let me know family does not have to be blood.
Kith. Have you ever heard the word kith?
No.
K-I-T-H.
Huh.
So it's an old Scottish word. You ever hear the word kin?
Yes.
Kith is the Scottish word that goes with kin, because kin is Scottish too, I think. So it used to be kith and kin.
Mm-hmm.
Kin is the blood that you were born into. Kith is the friends that become blood.
Yes.
So I'm trying to reawaken the word kith.
Well, there's a lot of kith over here.
Yeah, baby.
Matter of fact, God forbid if something happened to me and my wife, kith would take our kids because we can trust them.
Yeah.
And it may sound harsh, but we know that they're going to love them, be authentic, and truly look at their best interest,
right,
while allowing them to be themselves.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, thank you for these piercing questions, because you're making me think about things I haven't thought of in a long time. I'm close to 50 now, so it's a little bit.
Man, we're all kind of like, I saw a meme the other month that really I ring to, and that's that I'm a ghost driving a meat skeleton, surfing a rock that is hurtling through space on quantum gravity.
Wow.
Have no fear.
Wow.
I am a ghost driving a meat skeleton, surfing a rock that is hurtling through space on quantum gravity. It's literally riding. It's just super cool to think about.
Oh, that's a lot.
So I love. Yeah. Ever since I thought, like, it just how could you beat? Have no fear.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, talk to me more about you and your wife have 2 children. Beautiful. Your wife is beautiful in body and spirit, and I had a chance to meet her last Friday as well. And you guys have a lot of parent initiatives that you guys are going
Yes.
through. Yes. And you have a nonprofit that you do, right?
So we're actually for profit.
Okay, you're for-profit. That's okay. There's no problem with that. No.
So I'll give you the impetus of it. So New Collar Solutions started in 2018.
And that's the shirt you're wearing, right?
That's the shirt I'm wearing. New
Collar Solutions. Gotcha.
Yes. So
talk to me about that.
Initially, I thought of as growing your own pipeline for young men of color with entrepreneurs. But as I begin to work with young men more, and I worked with young men previously in college, but we could talk about that later. But I said, it's some intrinsic things I got to go on first before we get to the vocational piece, because there's insecurities, there's a lot of trauma. So while it sounds good in theory to go into the workforce and explore this vocation, we got to deal with the person. We got to deal with the young man.
Right.
And we got to deal with the families.
Right.
So let's get to the root of that. So that transformed the business model. And I'll be honest, my wife started it, like in terms of the setting up this business structure. But she's like, I don't see a lot of fire under you. And so I was like.
Your wife said that to you?
Yeah.
When did she say that to you?
Because with the Grow Your Own, I was like just kind of expanding on my logistics background.
When was this?
This was 2017, 2018.
2017, 2018.
So when I began, after she gave me that talk, and I thought about
this is January 2025 as we record. Just FYI to the audience.
Yes. You're real good at this. For real. And anybody know me, I'm never sarcastic. And there's no shade to anybody who's sarcastic. When I say something, I generally mean it.
I appreciate that.
So me and Brother Charlie can know each other. So he has to learn my idiosyncrasies, know that this is Curtis, not Memon Rex.
Man, I love idiosyncrasies. We show up as we are here, and we just we're just doing it, baby.
Yeah. So P.S. I'm like, what would get me up at 2 and 3 in the morning is to go and help a young man because somebody did that for me.
Right.
It's inherent on us to be here for each other. I truly believe that. And God, I ended up going to seminary, and how I ended up there is just trying to find God on my own.
Right.
Because I love my mother and grandmother, but was still questions I need to answer to. So P.S. this lens to looking through sin. Okay, yeah, sin is wrong, but sin is also not living to what you're supposed to be and how you're designed. So when I don't use my gifts, that's a sin. I have an inherent responsibility to come and pour into Brother Charlie and likewise.
Is that? Do you take that? How do you look at the parable of the talents then?
So that's a cornerstone.
Okay.
And Matthew 5:16 shows that let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. So what have I given you and how have you optimized it?
Right.
And it looks different for everybody.
Right.
Just like everybody's genius and intellect acumen is different.
Yep.
Yeah, STEM is cool, but there's artistic geniuses too.
Yep.
There's people that have nuances with the soft skills.
Some of the things about what you're just saying about like artistic talent and things like artistic genius, I think sometimes we overlook the fact that they're just as important.
Yeah.
Like, how do you see? Let me ask you this question. This is out of the blue.
Yeah.
So you talked about STEM, science, technology, all that stuff. Where does art fit into human experience, and where does it fit in its importance?
So I believe art envelops the human experience. I think it's the substratum of it because art is abstract and it evolves. It vacillates between being what I can see and touch and what I can feel, but I can't put anything tactile to. So, and I think, unfortunately, it's almost like, and I'm going to juxtapose this. If you show up all the time, and I know Brother Charlie going to be there, sometimes I'll probably take you for granted because you're always there. I know when I'm late for class, Brother Charlie, my buddy, he gonna give me the notes. But when he not there, it's a void. And I think that's what happened with art. It's underappreciated, undervalued, but the value, inherent value never left. It's just I appreciated of it that didn't come to the forefront.
Do you believe that anything cannot have an artistic aspect to it? So let me build on that question.
Okay.
So they talk about the art of lawyering, right? They talk about the art of negotiation, or they talk think of any vocation and it'll start someone put art to the art of it. So can we put the word art to anything that a human does?
Yeah. And I believe it's art to how even we connect with parents.
What does it mean?
It means that you have an affinity for stepping into the space that otherwise would be prohibited. And that can mean a couple of different things. You have a energy and a gumption that enables you, empowers you to step into a place and navigate it with almost look effortlessly. But it's really arcane to people who don't have that ability.
Right. Right.
And the reciprocal is true. You come and walk in Curtis shoes, you're like, what the hell is this?
Right.
But I'm just ice skating through it.
Right.
But what happens is this is years too. It's an art to learning it.
Right.
So now we're talking about honing our crafts.
Right.
Because while you still got the art, you still have to cultivate it. That go back to the parable of the talents. I gotta do something.
Right.
God is not gonna sit there and let you be a spectator. It's not passive, it's active. That's why I say the word became flesh and wasn't made. Made makes him passive.
Right.
So if I'm the divine image, I gotta make something. We're here making something now.
Absolutely.
We're making something right. Somebody, this is blessing somebody somewhere. Somebody we'll probably never meet. Some household, some professional, some mother, some nephew, some niece, somebody who's like, what the hell am I gonna do today? Or somebody who's like, man, I have a grandiloquent life, but I'm still not fulfilled.
I find that what you're talking about is super true, for lack of a better word, right? Mm-hmm. Super true. That's the most that's the most genuine phrase I think I said today. There is a weird thing about human connection, and I'll draw something that we both experienced last Friday at that fatherhood thing at VCU. There were two gentlemen at my table, father and son. I'm not sure if you recall this.
Yes,
the one gentleman had literally just got out of 16 years of prison.
Yes, Brother Shane.
10 months ago, and he was there with his 16-year-old son that was the age he was when he got sent to prison. And then his son was sharing in the group of the men at the table I was at. So we had this fatherhood fatherhood focused event at VCU that allowed for some like group interaction, and then you had some really poignant questions about. I recall and I'm not sure if you're the one that came up with the questions or who it was, but it was a really interesting question. The first one, do you recall what it was? It was essentially about leadership, love, and was it support?
Yes.
Like what actions can we do to influence the way our children view leadership, love, and leadership, support, and love, or love, support, and leadership? What do you remember what it was?
So I don't remember it exactly verbatim, but how I got to that was, one, I attribute everything to God and divine energy, but I still had to ruminate on it. So it's about empowering in perpetuity, because we don't go through the same challenges as we go through generations or even through everyday life.
Right.
So as parents, we have to take the hierarchical out. We have to relate like this horizontal, not talk at you, I'm talking to you. So I have to have empathy for what you're going through. So that means, yeah. So and I'm just saying for illustration, but if I'm Brother Charlie's son, if he truly wants to be in tune with me, he has to listen to me and know what I'm going through.
Right.
And to be able to look at principles that may be able to be tailored to help me negotiate and filter what I'm going through. Or he may say, you know what? I don't have an answer, but I'm going to be right here. And sometimes your presence is just enough.
How scary is that for fathers that don't know the answers?
It's hella scary. I'm dealing with 2 girls right now, and they deal with a reality that I couldn't imagine. Because first of all, I'm not a woman.
Right.
That's the first part. And this generation, now granted, I'm what I guess I call Gen X, on the cusp right before technology started. But they're dealing with a whole reality where they're more sacrosanct in intellectuality, but not really practical. But one thing I can appreciate about them is they don't move. They want to see something in results. And I think this is part of where I think our spirituality needs to go, because God's like, yeah, we're not dealing with the ethereal, but I'm looking to take you somewhere you haven't done before. So they're looking for practical principles that can be applied daily. And I love it. So it forces us into a creative space, because we were brought up, for the most part, being an oppression Olympics and wait for the better day to come. The generation now say, no, make that motherfucker now.
Right. Right.
So while it sounds harsh, it's imperative on us to do that. It's imperative upon us to do that.
Right.
And so yeah.
How did you and your wife, you guys, what's your business is it purposeful parenting?
So it's parenting on purpose.
Parenting on purpose.
Yes. And so God gave that to my wife. The divine download, as Pastor Cook would say, shout out to Pastor Lakeisha Cook. And I just got to say this because people may be watching this and they may say, he goes back and forth talking about God in expletive language, but God knows me and I'm comfortable who I am. And I say that in humility.
Right.
I just feel like we got to address elephants in the room.
Right.
Because who's to say what somebody's experience look like? As we were talking with Brother Jonathan.
Right.
I can't tell you what your reality is. So P.S., going back to the parent, I just had to put that out there for people that may be watching. But so what we realized in our work as working with the young men and ladies, we got to deal with the family. It's a whole thing. Or whoever is there, caretaker, guardian, whoever.
That's so important. So important.
Yes. So that's how, and so my wife started the workshops, and I actually deferred to her because she has an education background. I call her the more formally trained, and I'm the more informal.
You're the street trained.
Yeah. I came to the, granted, I'm the nerd when it comes to technology, project management, change management.
Yeah.
But in the nuanced mental health space, I was fairly nascent in terms of my experience vocationally, and had to get up on that.
Well, what do you guys do with purposeful parenting?
So we bring them together. And when they come thinking about, they're going to talk about their kids, but it's really introspection of themselves. And what happens a lot of times, we end up talking about things they dealt with, and how, unfortunately, a lot of times unintentionally imposing their trauma on their kid. And we just talked about that, how that trickles down.
Yep.
And really having tunnel vision in terms of being open to having a reciprocal relationship, because how my grandmother raised me, that's how it's supposed to be. No, your discipline needs to show up. And I think me and my wife talked about a little this on Friday. Like, our discipline style showed up different, and we had to adjust. Mine was way more rigid.
Right.
Hers was more liberal, but neither one was for Journey and Kindle. We had to make a whole new recipe.
Can I share something I only realized a couple weeks ago about my childhood and the parenting by my father? So my particular childhood, my father raised us. He's still married to my mother, and I love them both. My mother was a nighttime nurse, and so she worked the 3 to 11 shift. And they did that because they had 3 kids. They didn't have, we grew up blue collar. And so they did it because it made sense. And I think a lot of families right now are forced to make decisions on what makes sense to raise the children with the resources that are available, you know, and we all are doing the best we can with what we have, and with the traumas and also the avoidances that we haven't addressed, because we all have those. None of us are perfect. The biggest thing that I recognize, I don't know if you know this about me, we've just met, maybe you figured out I've got a bit of a problem with authority, you know, and my other problem is I became a fawner for particular reasons. The issue, I guess, that I realized was my father, and I didn't see it as a problem then. My father was very authoritarian. The house was his. In fact, there were sometimes we didn't have the right to shut the door of our bedroom. You know, it's that was his room. That was his door, right? And the one thing I recognized looking back is that and I saw one of my brothers parenting one of their children, and what came out when the child said no, my brother said, "You don't tell me no," and it hit me that, like, and I don't want to blame my father. I do know that my problem with authority and with the word no is part and parcel to the fact that I never learned and was never given the opportunity to figure out, how do I say no to someone who has the authority of my father and the ability to punish me and the ability to take things away that I want. And then how did I then maneuver that? Because every one of us develops a way to say no, whether it's the word no or whether it's avoidant behavior that gets around and you never ask. So then, like, and I've recognized that this has permeated my relationships, you know, like interpersonal romantic female relationships, because I don't know how to present my boundary, because I only always say yes. And I say yes when I don't mean yes. And it really means, yeah, I'll come to that. And in the back of my mind is like, if I have the chance, you know, and it's really harmed me. And when I've just been looking back at it, when it happened, I was just like, man, I was not allowed to say no to the most powerful people in my life at a young age. And they didn't give me the opportunity to learn. Does this bring, like, what are your thoughts on that as you've been dealing with men and women and going through the parenting issue? Like, what's your thought on that?
First of all, Brother Charlie, I don't take it for granted. Thank you for, one, carving this space out and willing to share that information with us, and trust us with that.
Absolutely.
Because we live in a time where you open up and sometimes things are weaponized against you. And so this is not the place for that. I love you.
Love you too.
And we're going to show up the same.
I'm short. My last name is Inch. I literally am Johnny Cash's a boy named Sue, man. A boy named Sue. That's who you got here. And you're so right. And I appreciate you giving homage to that and you being vulnerable as well. Like, this is a place of sharing. People are coming out here because they're struggling. They're going through fucking hell. Yeah. They don't know what to do, you know, and they've got kids that are using heroin. You know, they don't know and it's causing their fight, flight, or freeze mechanism to pop up because they're worried that at 2:00 in the morning they're going to get that phone call and their kid's going to be dead in a gutter, and it's going to be the coroner saying, "Come down here and claim your kid." And I've had cases like that. I've had clients die of fentanyl. I've had commit suicide. You know, like people were going through hell, and like that's what I want. I was like, man, how do we get people to talk about this when they're not in this? Like, how do we get them to find help? And so I just thank you so much for being here to talk about this.
Thank you. And I put out, I don't have all the answers. And what I find, I'm gonna come back to it. But what happens a lot of times is the folks that trust us with the safeguard their space end up edifying each other, you know, in terms of sharing their experience. And it's beautiful to watch. And I feel like that's what happened at the fatherhood event. I didn't come with no grand spectrum of answers and plethora of options. Right. No, we just showed up, authentic selves, committed to why we came, to walk away coming more inspired and more focused and whatever we needed. Right. So, but to your question, how does that show up? You made me think about my molestation and how that affected my intimacy issues with sex. Man. So I was molested by a man and a woman. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we on here, but you talk about not being sure about your sexuality.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Could you indicate what age range did this happen in?
So this is between 5 and 9.
5 and 9.
So it plants things in your mind like, do I like this, or how I'm feeling? So I've been going to psychologists and psychiatrists and psychologists, since I was about that age. And I remember my very first one, Dr. Hale. my mother found. I can't remember how, but I used to take the bus after school and go talk to her.
Man.
And so how that shows up, like, because I don't know how to express that stuff because it's already perverted.
Right.
It's always been defiled somehow. So how do I come back to that? So how that showed up was being very promiscuous in college because I was an ugly duckling in high school, but when I got to college, it took off.
Yeah, baby.
And I tell anybody, I'm glad I meet my wife in college because I would just fumbled. But
well, things unfold as they're supposed to. Right?
Yes.
I think you were the one that said everything's happening for a reason. It's supposed to happen the way it is.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the fact that this is my first time having multiple people on the podcast, and poor brother Curtis shows up, and it's like an hour and a half after he's supposed to start. And we're like, okay, we might be able to get started here, But yeah, so tell me more about this because I love the fact that you're opening up, and there's people out there. Some people think that it's impossible to overcome those things. What do you say to that?
I say it's not, but it definitely takes work and it takes having an honest conversation with yourself, excuse me, and it also takes people that you can trust in your circle.
How did that affect your identity of self?
First, of course, it's a sexuality piece. Like you wondering, like, do I? But then I realized, okay, I do like girls, but at the same time, that had happened to me. So I was like, does that make me somehow? And what it ended up doing though was give me an empathy in terms of people that go through more intense experience and maybe gay or whatever they are. But so some positive byproduct came out of that is what I'm saying.
Right.
But I would say, yes, you can overcome, but it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of being proactive. I have a mentor and I can say his name, Colonel Victor Harmon, retired. I met him at Rock Island Arsenal. Him and his wife at the time been married for like maybe 25, 26 years. And he would allow me to come in his office, talk about work, but more importantly about manhood. I'm like, sir, how do you make it work? He's like, Curtis, you got to be proactive and intentional in your marriage, just like you be intentional in working out or doing anything else. So me and my wife ended up going to counseling and therapy just cause. And it ended up being beneficial because some things with my father started to come back up. And I'm like, I don't want to cut the person or bleed on the person that didn't cut me.
Right.
So because that inner child, that inner young girl, that inner young boy need to be healed, and we need to deal with that and how to express that. And then the person who is our partner, they need to give us grace, but we need to give grace to them too.
Right.
So did I at least address part of that? I want to make sure I don't leave you hanging, Brother Charlie.
No, I think you're doing wonderful. I think you shared something really important. How do we draw this back? And I think you're doing so. How do we draw it back to really kind of addressing some things that seem to be overlooked? And we can't be too, I don't know where I'm really going. What I'm thinking about is this, I guess I'm just thinking about just the general challenges it is right now to be a father, to be a mother with children. And also, I'm not one, right? I don't have children. I've got dogs. I guarantee everyone that has kids would be offended if I said my dogs, but that's if I know anything because I've got dogs. There's just so many challenges right now. May I share with you, so I represent men and women through all spectrums of criminal defense and domestic relation abuse and the splitting of I do the domestic work and go and figure out how to carve up the family, right? How's dad going to get every other weekend and one night a week for dinner, and mom's going to get the kid predominantly. Mm-hmm. Where have you found to be the biggest place that you're getting some traction with your purposeful parenting? Like, where is the thing that, whether you were surprised or not surprised, what seems to be the predominant thing that seems to be catching hold or the predominant realizations? Is there any insight to how long have you guys been doing purposeful parenting?
So I would say my wife, maybe like 2.5 going on 3 years.
Okay.
Now, and I got to say, so my wife's business is Unbreakable Minds. So if you're watching now, you don't follow me or you get acquainted, look for Unbreakable Minds, Coach Yolanda, a.k.a. Love. So it started with her, and particularly in the motherhood circles that she would have. And she had a wonderful idea that ended up being beautiful, where mothers just had the space to just be themselves and be vulnerable and deal with those inner things where they dealt with as younger ladies early in their life that showed up for them and their daughters or their sons. And so, but what happened is, going to the insights, how do I get the man I'm dealing with, that I'm co-parenting with, involved? So that's where we come together. But neither one of us had the idea of dealing with fatherhood or motherhood when we started.
Right.
We were solely focused on youth. Me, ages 12 through 19, and her like 15 to 25. So that just show you how God worked. Like
Everyone wants to help the kids.
yeah, but the parents need it too. I need it.
Yeah, the person that's hurting the kids is the parents.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Child Savers?
No, I'm not.
So Child Savers is down in Churchill. Used to be a guy named John Richardson Love. Used to be the trauma guy there. He's now at St. Joseph's Villa.
Okay.
He's like the amazing trauma expert, like really great guy. John Richardson Love.
Okay.
Louve is the way.
Okay.
Louve. It's Richardson Love. And he and I, when I started going down this trauma-informed thing, when I started trauma-informedlaw.com, and I was like looking, it's like, how do I do this? And how do how do I show up in the space correctly without bringing offense? Because, I'm a walking trauma, I'm a walking trigger. Because that's what I tell people, like criminal defense and cross-examining people in domestic stuff, like, I'm looking for your button, and I'm looking to push it as hard as I can get away with to see if I can get you triggered and to show up in a bad way in court so I can affect the way your case shows up for the betterment of my client. People don't think about that.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Because how do you, and I thank you for sharing, like, how does that show for you internally, Brother Charlie, between what you have to do in your day life, your career, your vocation, your calling, and then Brother Charlie, the intricate, intimate part? Like,
it almost killed me. In 2017, I started talking about this and talked a little bit earlier. I saw the Vegas shooting, and I recognized if I wasn't careful, I would justify doing something like that. And then, like, I was getting suicidal, and when I was getting angry, it was only shame of the things I was doing that was actually curtailing my behavior. And then I would go into the shame bath for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I wouldn't leave the house except for just needing to. And I would swear I would never go or do anything again. And all of a sudden I'd be right back to it. And so the biggest, like what you're talking about, like, and I think that's the thing. And this is not the kind of work to do the criminal defense and the domestic stuff. Like 2 Christmases ago, I was, and I don't want to overshare some of these things, but they're just so meaningful. 2 Christmases ago, I went into a jail right over the Christmas break to see an 82-year-old man in a wheelchair that was there because he was accused of touching a 4-year-old. Right? And so to your point, a couple years ago, I had a I had a protege. I was the mentor. And I was teaching a friend of mine, female, how to practice law in the way that I do. I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I don't know how to build a business at that point in time. One day we were walking in representing a man who was accused of touching his 10-year-old daughter. And we handled that. And it was late afternoon, was the arraignment. I mean, the energy of that courtroom. Like, the deputies knew what the accusations were. They even knew what he said during the interview with the police. Like, it's like, these are the kind of cases people seek out to find the information, right?
Wow. And
so behind closed doors, like, all the deputies know all the gory details. I just got called by the family because I'd known the family, and they're like, we need your help, Charlie. So once we finished that, we went to the car, and my friend said, so we're going to go for a drink now, right? And I was like, no, we're going down to a county south of the Richmond. And she said, what case is that? And I said the name of the case. And that particular case, we were representing the mother of 2 young children and trying to keep the children away from the father, who was abusing the kids, not sexually, but abusing the kids with weird having the 5-year-old boy hold up liters of water and then whipping him if he lets the arms drop and things like that. And so that's like, and she looked at me and she said, Charlie, do you have no nerve endings? How is it that we go from representing the man that's accused of touching his kid to representing the mother that we're trying to, within hours of each other in the same day? How do you switch from that to that? And that's just one example. You represent the father, the husband that's accused of beating up the wife, and then you go represent a different person, a female who's trying to get a protective order against her loved one. Like, and that's every day, because in this job, you can't make money unless you're in court multiple times a day if you're a trial lawyer. And so you're literally going, and it really messes with you.
So you just made me think of so many things, and thank you for sharing. I'm an avid reader. Like, I love to read, and it's a gentleman named Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he just had a book published, The Message, and of course he got a lot of backlash because he delved into the Israelite-Palestine situation. But what I'm gonna take from a snippet, one of his fireside chats at one of the universities, is he talked about how simplistic morality and ethics seem when we talk about an abstract, but the application of it could be so nuanced.
Right.
So it's like, it's always an ongoing quandary and conundrum. Like, where does the scale fall and what's going on? And there's so much contextual things there that feed that. And that's one thing I learned early. And I say this in all humility. Like my grandmother said, don't make up your mind yet. And that was the root of doing due diligence. Find out what's going on. Get as much as you can first before being resulted. And then, of course, me being a big black guy, I just put out there, I had a whole bunch of things assumed about me. You know, especially when I started, it's like, how long you been down? Been down where? Been in jail. I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
You know, I had tattoos.
They make the assumption.
Yeah. So, but what it does is give me empathy. And that's not to say I'm perfect, but I'm not trying to judge nobody.
Right. Right.
I don't even like using the word judge. I'll assess Brother Charlie based on my experience with Brother Charlie.
Right.
Not what nobody else says about Brother Charlie.
Right. There's a lot of people that say that, and I'm not suggesting you aren't. And the challenge is, I think people don't realize where that shows up. Mm-hmm. That's the grace that I think is difficult to give sometimes, is that because then you see what I call the cognitive emotional dissonance, that they're saying one thing, but their emotions are allowing them to make decisions that are against things. And so then that's kind of what gave me the insight into the somatic work that I do with my clients, because there's a place that you can find in the body where the precognitively, neuroceptually, the body is getting ready to go to fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And you can literally start seeing in the facial expressions, when the microfacial expressions leave, that's the first stage of going into fight, flight, or freeze, because you're either getting an unsuppressed sympathetic nervous system and a suppressed parasympathetic, which means it's now shutting down in reverse order of the evolution of the nodes of the parasympathetic. The top node is called the malamated vagus nerve. It's essentially above the diaphragm and it goes to the face, and it controls everything, even down into your inner ear muscles, to determine how tight the inner ear muscles are, to determine whether the eardrums are tuned down to low frequencies and that of predators and footsteps, or turn up towards higher human voices. And so literally when you go to a freeze state, dorsal vagal shuts down, shuts all of this down. And then it's a physiological experience. And what it does correlatively is it then disconnects you from rational mind. And like the studies are showing, once it starts to go that way, now you've got 40% rational mind gone. And then the focus goes to the perceived grizzly bear, which is not an actual real grizzly bear. It's a conceptualization of a grizzly bear. You know, it's the trial. It's going into the principal's office. It's getting ready to be chastised, whatever it may be. And that becomes the focus. Our pain receptors go up, and we don't care if we get an arm ripped off. And then we do crazy fucking shit. And then we come out of it and we do oh my God, what the hell? And then the problem is then people judge us from that state and believe that that's the real us, despite the fact that we've got decades of experience with them, with us, to recognize there's a difference.
Okay. So real quick, it's another book that's out called Cast by Isabel Wickelson. Okay. And she goes into a little bit of epigenetic discourse. Yep. And I'm not a bio major, but I know I'm more of a liberal arts guy. But
I'm there with you. Yep. There, the Bruce Lipton stuff. Yep.
But she used another natural example where she talks about the dormancy of toxins and how they come to the surface, how they still living, but they manifest differently. Yes. Those things are still in there. Yep. So when you translate it to us, all these things are feeding us, and then we come to clarity. Yeah. And I tell you this, and this may be, I don't know who's under 12, but I had a very frank conversation with some high school students, and the young man asked, he said, "Brother Curtis, what happened when you have sex with a crazy girl?" And not in those words. I said, what happens is you're physiologically aroused, but literally, and we may think it's a joke as men, once you hit that climactic button, you do get a sense of clarity. Because it's like,
I need to get the hell out of here. Yeah. Do not cuddle.
Yeah.
This is not a safe place, right?
But P.S., when you want to stay there, that may be who you want to be with.
Right.
So
sometimes like an unhealed me wanted to be with a lot of people that weren't like birds of a feather, right? Yeah. You know? All right. Well, we're going to take a bit of a break right now. We've got some technology issues. We're having a bit of a overheating camera. My friend, let's try to get back. We'll see what's going on. And if not today, we'll get you back soon. This has been such an amazing experience. I'm so glad you got a chance to see this. So we're going to jump off. I think, did we get to the 30 minutes on your live feed?
Probably so. I imagine so.
40 minutes. Yeah. Almost to 40 minutes.
Blessings from our brother Charlie, the Trauma Philosopher, and crew. Appreciate it. Love y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Love you guys.